Hello and welcome to College Success. My name is Matthew Poole, and today we're going over Chapter 9, Understanding Civility and Cultural Competence. All of the following information is directly from OpenStax free resources online. You can find a link to the textbook in the description below. Thank you to OpenStax. Let's begin. We will be going over the following: 9.1, What is diversity? 9.2, Categories of diversity. 9.3, Navigating the diversity landscape. And 9.4, Inclusivity and Civility. What role can I play? Let's go over the following statements. I'm aware of the different categories of diversity and the various populations I may encounter. Next, I think we sometimes go too far in trying to be sensitive to different groups. Next, I think nearly everybody in our society has equal opportunity. And 4, it's not my role to ensure equity and inclusiveness among my peers or colleagues. I want you to consider these 4 statements as we navigate this chapter. What we'll be diving into includes, firstly, we're going to articulate how diverse voices have been historically ignored or minimized in American civic life, education, and culture. We're going to describe categories of identity and experience that contribute to diverse points of view, acknowledge implicit bias and recognize privilege, and evaluate statements and situations based on their inclusion of diverse perspectives. 9.1, What is diversity, and why is everybody talking about it? Historically, has diversity always been a concern? What does it mean to be civil? Why do people argue about diversity? In our classroom, everyone is the same. But these days, when Shakespeare is staged, there's a tendency for non-traditional casting. Romeo could be black, Juliet could be Latina, Lady Montague could be Asian. What do you think that kind of casting would disrupt the experience of seeing the play? In this case, the instructor makes the assumption that because everyone in the class looks the same, they are the same. What did the instructor miss about the potential diversity in this classroom? Diversity is more than what we can recognize from external clues such as race and gender. Diversity includes many unseen aspects of identity, which includes sexual orientation, political point of view, veteran status, and many other aspects that you may not have considered. To be inclusive and civil within your community, it is essential that you avoid making assumptions about how other people define or identify themselves. Why diversity matters. The United States is often described as a melting pot. Some groups have had to struggle to have their contributions acknowledged, be treated fairly, and be allowed full participation in the civic life of the country. Diversity refers to differences in the human experience. Diversity takes into account age, socioeconomic factors, ability such as sight, hearing, and mobility, ethnicity, veteran status, geography, language, sexual orientation, religion, size, and other factors. The role of equity and inclusion. The Americans with Disability Act, ADA 1990, is a federal government policy that addresses equity in the workplace, housing, and public places. The ADA requires reasonable accommodations so that people with disabilities have equal access to the same services as people without disabilities. Figure 9.7. Equality is a meaningful goal, but it can leave people with unmet needs. Equity is more empowering and fair. In equality portion of the graphic, people of all sizes and a person who uses a wheelchair are all given the same bicycle, which is unusable for most. In the equity portion, each person gets a bicycle specifically designed for them, enabling them to successfully ride it. The role of equity inclusion. When equity is properly considered, there is also inclusion. Inclusion means that there are a multiplicity of voices, skills, and interests represented in any given situation. Our country is becoming more diverse. You may have heard the phrase, the browning of America, meaning it is predicted that today's racial minorities will collectively be the majority of the population in the future. Figure 9.8. The United States demographics or statistical characteristics of populations are changing rapidly. In just over 35 years, the country as a whole will be a majority-minority nation, with ethnic/racial minorities making up more than half of the population. Analysis question. How should the United States prepare for its projected demographic shift? What changes do you suppose will take place as a part of the quote, Browning of America? Education, equity for all. Education has been one of the most significant arenas for social change related to our rights as Americans. Brown versus Board of Education of Topeka in 1954 to see how our nation has responded passionately in civil and uncivil ways to appeals for equity and inclusion in public education. Debates, civility versus incivility. Healthy debate is a desirable part of a community. Incivility occurs when people are not culturally competent. An individual who is not culturally competent may make negative assumptions about others' values, lack an open mindset, or be inflexible in thinking. Out of frustration, a person who is uncivil may resort to name-calling or discrediting another person only with the intention of causing confusion and division within a community. Incivility can also propagate violence. Activity. Describe a time when you could not reach an agreement with someone on a controversial issue. Did you try to compromise, combining your points of view so that each of you would be partially satisfied? Did either of you shut down communication? Was the ending of the conversation a good choice? Why or why not? Civility is a valued practice that takes advantage of cultural and political systems we have in place to work through disagreements while maintaining respect for others' points of view. Some may have a personal stake in an issue, such as abortion rights. Convincing other people to share their beliefs may be intended to create a community that will protect their rights. Others may have deeply held beliefs based on faith or cultural practices. They argue based on deeply held moral and ethical beliefs. Others may be limited in their background knowledge about an issue, but are able to speak from a script of conventional points of view. They may not want to stray from the script because they do not have enough information to extend an argument. Rules for fair debate. Firstly, avoid direct insults and personal attacks. Second, avoid generalizations and extreme examples. Number 3, avoid appealing to emotions rather than facts. 4, avoid irrelevant arguments. 5, avoid appeal to bias. 6, avoid appeal to tradition. 7, avoid making assumptions. Number 8, strive for root cause analysis. And finally, number 9, avoid obstinacy. Analysis question. Have you ever witnessed incivility in person or an argument in the news? Why do you think individuals are willing to shut down communication over issues they are passionate about? Online civility. Following are some basic guidelines to help exercise digital civility. Firstly, live the golden rule and treat others with respect and dignity both online and off. Respect differences of culture, geography, and opinion, and when disagreements surface, engage thoughtfully. Pause before replying to comments or posts you disagree with, and ensure responses are considerate and free of name-calling and abuse. And finally, stand up for yourself and others if it's safe and prudent to do. 9.2. Categories of diversity. What is identity? Can a person have more than one identity? Can identity be ambiguous? And what are fluidity and intersectionality? Who am I? According to the American Psychological Association, personal identity is an individual's sense of self defined by a set of physical, psychological, and interpersonal characteristics that is not wholly shared with any other person. And B, a range of affiliations, for example, ethnicity and social roles. Your identity is tied to the most dominant aspects of your background and personality. It determines the lens through which you see the world and the lens through which you receive information. Personal identity captures what distinguishes one person from another based on life experiences. No two people, even identical twins, live the same life. Role identity defines how we interact in certain situations. And our roles change from setting to setting, and so do our identities. Gender is also a diversity category that we increasingly understand to be less clearly defined. Merriam-Webster's dictionary includes a definition of they that denotes a non-binary identity, that is, someone who fluidly moves between male and female identities. Table 9.1. The website transstudent.org provides educational resources such as the above graphic for anyone seeking clarity on gender identity. Note that these are only examples of some gender pronouns, not a complete list. Intersectionality. Figure 9.14. Our identities are formed by dozens of factors, sometimes represented in intersection wheels. Consider the subset of identity elements represented here. Generally, the outer ring are elements that may change relatively often, while the inner circles are often considered more permanent. There are certain exceptions. How does each contribute to who you are, and how would possible change alter your self-identity? 9.3. Navigating the diversity landscape. What happens when we make assumptions about others? Are microaggressions honest mistakes? How do I know if I have a diversity problem? How important is diversity awareness in the college classroom? Avoid making assumptions. Be mindful of microaggressions and be aware of implicit bias. Now, you can take the project implicit test at the following provided by openstax.org/i/i8 Cultural Competency in the College Classroom. Academic freedom allows for honest conversations. It seeks resources and projects that contribute to civility and can directly confront prejudice. No one knows when a racist or sexist attack is coming. The Bernard Center for Research on Women has created a video suggesting ways to be an ally to people victimized by intolerant behavior. openstax.org/i/don't be a bystander. Affirmative action in higher education, the Regents of the University of California versus Bakke, Fisher versus the University of Texas, and Title IX in higher education. 9.4. Inclusivity and civility. What role can I play? Is it my fault that I have privilege? How long will diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts continue? What is to be gained by cultural competency? Privilege is not just for white people. Privilege is a right or exemption from liability or duty granted as a special benefit or advantage. Oppression is the result of the use of institutional privilege and power, wherein one person or group benefits at the expense of another. Rethinking. Let's revisit the questions you answered at the beginning of the chapter. Number 1, I'm aware of the different categories of diversity and the various populations I may encounter. I think we sometimes go too far in trying to be sensitive to different groups. I think nearly everybody in our society has equal opportunity. And 4, it's not my role to ensure equity and inclusiveness among my peers or colleagues. I'm curious how your perspective has changed, altered, or what's your overall opinion of this chapter and the following statements. This OpenStax ancillary resource is copyright of Rice University under a CC by 4.0 attribution international license. It may be reproduced or modified, but must be attributed to OpenStax Rice University, and any changes must be noted. Thank you for tuning in to this chapter of the OpenStax Student Success. Again, all of the following is directly from free resources from OpenStax. The link to the textbook is in the description below. I hope you have a good rest of your day, and I will see you in the next one for chapter 10. Bye-bye.